Hey guys, welcome back to Tennis 360, the podcast where we talk about all things tennis. My name's Anthony Hirsch.
And I'm Eliza Wastcoat.
And today we will talk about different tournaments that happened last week. We're going to talk about the Doha 1000 tournament that happened last week. Jasmine Paolini gets the win over Anna Kalinskaya. In 3 sets, she comes back from a set and a break down. Kalinskaya also served for it in the 3rd set. Paolini's been just the absolute comeback master this week. She came back against Haddad Maia from down a set in 4-2. It was 15-40, and it was not a final you usually see in a 1000 event.
Yeah, and I think this might be a little bit of a case study for the WTA to look at in terms of back-to-back 1000 tournaments. Literally played over a 2-week period. I think that this is a result of a little bit of a congested schedule whereby the top seeds are falling early because they're carrying fatigue from the previous 2 tournaments, one being a 1000 and the other being a 500 tournament. Obviously, this was also Sabalenka's first tournament back since the Australian Open, so she didn't have quite the best performance that she might have been looking for, but we know that she took a little bit of time away from the court, so that's kind of an impacting factor. But in general, we would have expected to see some higher ranked seeds at least make it to the semis and the finals in this tournament. But, when you have a congested schedule, that leaves the door open for, outsider opportunities to take advantage. And I think that Paolini is a type of kind of player that has the fitness and the skill set to, kind of upset higher ranked players who might be carrying a little bit of fatigue from previous tournaments. She kind of got the perfect game for that because she's such a battler and fighter from the back of the court that this kind of whole tournament setup, I think, suited her very well to have a good run. And similarly with Kalinskaya, who she defeated in the final, she came through qualifying to have another impressive run so far this season and make the final here at her first Masters 1000 tournament. And she also played some fantastic tennis. So I think we kind of had conditions ripe for an outsider to have a good run.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, I think the schedule is so wild to have just within 7 weeks, we have 4 1000 events played. I saw somebody say you have 40% of the thousands played by the end of March, which is just like, that doesn't make sense as the way the season's set up. A quarter of the season. So anyway, I agree with you. It sets up for somebody to make a run, especially because, I think people want to peak at the Sunshine Double and Indian Wells, Miami, and they have that mentally in their head. But anyway, it was a great performance from both ladies, though, as they sorry, my alarm went off. Take it off. It was a great performance from both ladies, though, and Paolini just hitting so hard. Both women hitting so hard throughout. I thought it was a great contest of just neither player served incredibly well. Like Paolini only made 49% of her first serves in, but I think that I think it really set up for hard hitting and really good returning that made it a really tight battle throughout. And it was high level, mostly outside the serving, but it was high level. And I think it's exciting for people to see players that they don't usually see in the big finals. And I think that's what we got. And Kalinskaya, I mean, she's just been consistently a player that's improving so rapidly. She's not always been healthy, but she's a young player. She's only 25. Now I think she's playing the best tennis of her career yet. And she lost the final, but she was so close. She had an incredible run, as you were saying. And I mean, whenever you come from qualifying and get to the final of a big event and beat a player like Swiatek en route, it's always crazy. So anyway, speaking of that Swiatek loss, by the way, did you think it was more of a good win for Kalinskaya or a bad loss for Iga to lose 6-4, 6-4? Very unlike Iga.
Yeah, it was a little bit uncharacteristic. I do think that Kalinskaya, again, is that kind of player profile that can disturb Swiatek with that kind of big hitting from the baseline on taking time away from Iga and kind of drilling it to her forehand. So I thought Kalinskaya approached the match in the right way tactically and has the type of weapon that can upset Swiatek's game, especially when she's feeling a little bit mentally fatigued. I mean, Swiatek, if you watch her play, she just plays with such a level of kind of mental intensity that I'm not saying the other women don't have, but it feels like a more of a kind of draining energy at times from Swiatek, because she's so like perfectionist to kind of about everything she does on the court, that it kind of feels like for her this type of scheduling is even more kind of impacting in terms of, you know, making a deep run in the previous week in the Masters 1000 tournament, and then coming straight to Doha and kind of needing to continue that run. And I think it was a little bit of a surprise in terms of how Kalinskaya was playing, but again, also just the conditions bringing that fatigue kind of with her and just looking a little bit below par from what we've been seeing from Swiatek. But I mean, she still had, you know, all in all, a very strong start to the year. And I think a lot of us have looked at her performances over the last 2 weeks and sort of picked her as a real threat again going into the Sunshine Double, especially where conditions are favorable for her.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I wouldn't go that much, you know, at Swiatek for loss. I mean, she had won, I think, going into this loss, I think like 24 out of her last 25 matches. So
Right.
she was on a good run of form anyway, but of course it is disappointing. But you know, I was trying to figure out exactly what had happened. But the thing that impresses me about Kalinskaya is that she's been able to dictate a lot of the play here, but she's really not usually like the most aggressive player like on the tour. There are more aggressive players on the tour. She has a vast skill set, a vast kind of defensive skill set. She had a lot of great kind of slices and drop shots, great net play throughout this event as well. And you know, the thing is though, she is able to kind of step up on forehand when she needs to. And I think the good thing about Kalinskaya is she's always looks so chilled out there on the court. She's always just like head down, focused. And you know, a stat is that Kalinskaya got to hit 98 forehands to 84 backhand. Swiatek hit 98 backhands and 96 forehands. So that kind of shows that Kalinskaya really got to dictate a lot more in the match.
Yeah.
And with the forehand, and that's really what we saw throughout the match. Huge hitting, and I think it is the huge hitting that can really get the better of Swiatek, especially when you are able to back it up with some variety as well. And I think that really that and kind of a poor performance from Iga, where it was like 4-2 in the first set, and then Iga got through like a 4 or 5 deuce game, and it looked like Iga was going to take the lead. She was up 4-2 and on her serve, and then she got broken out love in the next game. Very poor service game. There were a couple of moments like that in the match where Swiatek just blinked to too many errors, and I thought that made the difference. Also, her first serve percentage was not even close to what it usually is. So
and I think that's just the fatigue portion. And again, like that kind of comparison and mental approach between Kalinskaya and Swiatek, where Kalinskaya just seems pretty relaxed and, you know, nothing to lose in this type of situation. And I do think Swiatek sort of carries that weight and pressure of her, you know, role as world number one, but also just this sort of internalized pressure that she has on herself to perform match in, match out. And I think at times it can just sort of catch up to her. But yeah, you know, everybody has a little bit of an off day every once in a while, especially when you look at a schedule as congested as it is. And I don't think that takes anything away from the Kalinskaya performance. I think that stat you gave between forehand and backhand shows the level of distribution that can bother Swiatek. If you can go to the forehand and make her hit as many forehands as you possibly can, especially if you're going there with pace, I think that is when you're able to draw more errors and stress out Swiatek a little bit more, because her backhand really is her, you know, favorable shot and where she causes the most damage. And she can look more rushed on that forehand side. So I think players are starting to figure that out if they have the game style to execute kind of that type of aggressive tennis, and then they're more likely to see some rewards against Swiatek.
Yeah, well, speaking, I have a different stat that kind of proves your point, right? Which is that Kalinskaya hit 36 wide serves to just 13 tee serves, even on the deuce side, where she was hitting a lot of them to the forehand. So, so yeah, I think that's what Kalinskaya was doing and really attacking over that shot. But yeah, first WTA final period of Kalinskaya's career. She does it by beating Goff, Ostapenko, Swiatek, and 4 other players. Pretty good. And that's why I think we're speaking so highly of her. But yeah, for the most part, I agree about Iga. It's not a worry sign, but you know, it's just it's a match to look at, a performance to look at, to hope that it's not, you know, it doesn't repeat, but it's, you know, everybody will have a bad day. We'll see how she plays in the Sunshine Double, and she can pick up her level from this kind of match and the performance this week. And yeah, another good run this week was from Kirstea, who's I believe 32, 33 years old, and she's now finally reaching some WTA 1000s, playing the best tennis for her career. She reached a career high ranking, jumping right near the top 20 in the world. She's going to have points to defend at the Sunshine Double, but I mean, she's playing amazing. She saved 6 match points versus Vondrousova and one of the best comebacks of the year. It's ridiculous, and you know, it's just such fine margins on so many of those points. But it was Kirstea's willpower that really fought her back into the match. I feel like we saw that time and time again throughout this tournament, whether it was Paolini versus Haddad Maia, or Paolini's whole tournament really, or whether it was Kirstea, you know, versus Vondrousova, or whether it was Vekic versus Sabalenka in the first round, take out Sabalenka. Did you see that point that Sabalenka played at 2-0, 43, where she had a backhand swinging volley and then the match turned on its head? Yeah. That was nuts. And I think that Sabalenka literally had to play right on top of the ball for a backhand volley winner, and she just leaves it for no reason. And then guess what? The match turns like that. I'll be honest, I've never seen that happen before in my life. But at a point like that shifts everything around. It's like, come on, you can just like hit the ball, because then you never know. And the match just completely shifted. Bekic literally won 12 of the last 13 games to turn that around.
So, yeah, that was a massive brain fart from Sabalenka. Unfortunate. Lack of match play, maybe. Yeah, I don't know. Over the last couple of weeks, obviously, we talked about it last week. She seemed to have a little bit of a procedure, took some time off the court. You know, these types of things can happen. Lapse in judgment kind of reminds me of Davidovich Fokina last year at Wimbledon, when he decided when he was ahead in the tiebreak to serve an underarm serve. That was one of the worst things I've ever seen. So yeah, these things happen. Players are human. I think also it's a good reminder for us recreational tennis players that at every level of this sport, like, you could be multiple match points down and come back, not only win the match, but win the tournament. So it's worth hanging in there. It's worth playing one more point and continuing to try. And I think it's this tournament was a good kind of showcase of why, you know, women's tennis can be very entertaining and be a little bit different from the men's game in terms of the talent field is very deep, and it can be anybody's day, and anybody can kind of beat anybody. And I think that because of the fact that women's serves maybe aren't as dominant as a man's serve is, that we do see these types of things happening a little bit more often, where we have players come back from kind of ridiculous situations. I do think some of these players are more experienced and should be closing out matches and shouldn't be in these types of situations, particularly in that comeback against Vondrousova that Kirstea had. I mean, Vondrousova was up, 5-1 or 5-2 in the second set. I mean, she is a good enough player to know how to manage that game and close out the match. So I thought that was quite a collapse from her end. And obviously Kirstea did everything she could to, you know, keep herself in it. But you would expect a Grand Slam champion to have a little bit more closing ability in a match like this and at a level like this. And also similar with Sabalenka, you know, to have a bad point or have a brain fart, that happens, but you would expect her to not then have such a deep bleed after the fact. But, you know, Vekic has beaten, I think, Sabalenka before. She kind of knows how to play her a little bit. And yeah, so I think there's something to say in that some of these players are experienced enough to manage the games a little bit better and should have put themselves in winning positions to get through. But at the same time, it's what makes the women's game pretty exciting. And I think it's also, yeah, as I said, just a reminder that the game can turn at any minute. You never know, and just keep fighting for points.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I always like the person who's down like 5-3 and, you know, 7-5, 3-40 love down. They keep yelling, come on. I mean, some people think you look like an idiot, but I think both of us will think you look like a badass, even if you lose the match. Yeah. So I think like that, I think that is a big thing. And Sabalenka, I just really don't understand how mentally she just completely folded from that situation. It was a bit unfortunate to see. Sabalenka's already proven herself. I mean, she'll be back. It was just like this one performance in separation was just like, it was almost hard to see. But that being said, the scoreline really read closer than it was. There were a lot of close games, even those like especially in the third set, there were a lot of close like deuce games. But Vekic was just too strong, too good. I mean, Vekic hit 45 winners to 29 errors. That's a stat for you. She played amazing. I agree with you about the depth in the women's game, and I think that we saw a lot of that in this week's tournament, which was Vekic, and then we had Kalinskaya. These are players that have been there week in, week out, but we've never really seen them have a huge run at an 1,000, at least in recent times. I think this was a good tournament to see that. Like you said, the circumstances for this to be the schedule to be so congested, which I agree is a factor, is not ideal. But it's good to see runs from players like Kristeva, from players like Vekic, from players like Paolini, from players like Kalinskaya. Those are good things to see. Exciting for the game, and we'll.
And a lot of players now get the opportunity to come into the Sunshine Double with a decent amount of confidence. I think that makes the Sunshine Double for the WTA side look kind of a little more interesting, because you've got, more players ranked, a little bit lower, kind of like outside of your top 10. I think, there are a lot of players in the field right now in the women's game between 10 and 30 that fancy themselves, that feel like they've had a really good start to the year. You'd put Kalinskaya in there. You might even put Yastremska in there. You put Pliskova, who's had a good couple of weeks. You would put Daniel Collins, who's had a good couple of wins so far this season. And there's more names that come to mind as a result of, getting a couple good wins, decent wins under your belt. And I think that does a lot to make these upcoming tournaments pretty interesting, because they're, slightly truncated tournaments, that these are players that are going to meet each other earlier on in the tournaments. And so I think we've set ourselves up for the potential to have some really interesting and intriguing kind of earlier round matches, particularly at Indian Wells, where the conditions there also are so variable between night and day that we could really see an opportunity for some upsets that really maybe we wouldn't even categorize as upsets, given, the depth and talent and the fact that they've had some positive runs and results so far this season.
Yeah, I agree. I think it would be great to see just all of the names that we saw this week still, contesting against the top players in the world. That was kind of the Doha event. In about 11 days following this, we have Indian Wells in Miami. So
madness.
Yeah.
But talking of good comebacks, I think it's we can move on to the Los Cabos title or tournament in Mexico. That was a 250 tournament, and that had some awesome comebacks, particularly from the Australian Jordan Thompson, who did secure the title at the end of the day. He defeated Casper Ruud 6-3, 7-6. And he also claimed the doubles title alongside Max Purcell. So a great tournament win for him. That's his first career singles ATP Tour title. And the reason why I bring that up is that Thompson actually saved multiple match points in the quarterfinals against the young American Alex Michelsen. And he did even get bageled in that first set. So an incredible comeback there. Really had to hang tight in the second set, serving to get to the tiebreak, and then played a super clean tiebreak. I know we could also talk a little bit about Michelsen, because I saw you tweeted about, what if he really is that young American talent that's going to be top of the crop when it comes to American tennis players. And he put on some really good tennis there, and I'm sure he'll be pretty disappointed that he wasn't able to close out that match, that he didn't play a great tiebreak and then sort of fell away in that third set. But that's the inexperience of a teenager versus a 29-year-old who's been grinding on this tour for a long time, and it was one of Thompson's best ever comeback wins. Again, an example of why you don't give up, why you kind of keep fighting. Screw it, you got bageled in the first set, doesn't matter. You start over in the second and the third. Like nothing in the past impacts the future in tennis, and I think that's what makes this sport so exciting. And Mickelson also, worth mentioning, beat de Minaur, who's been having a good year so far. He took him out in the round of 16, had a really good tournament.
Yeah, I was watching it 6-0, 3-0, also 6-0, 4-1, 15-40. Alex Mickelson had the chance to knock out the guy who eventually won the tournament. Thompson was hitting balls at the back fence, and he was shouting out. He had his arms raised in the air. He was wondering, why things just aren't working today. This is just a bad day. Goes on to win the tournament in doubles and in singles. Crazy run, beats Ruud. And also Zverev back-to-back. Zverev in 3 hours and 40 minutes. That could end up being one of the longest matches of the whole season. Crazy run
really
from Thompson
wild.
to get his first ATP title as well.
Yeah, awesome for him. And I think he had such a busy finals day too. I think he had to play 2 doubles matches and a singles match, spent 6 hours on court. Plus he had that epic match that he had to grind against Zverev, as you mentioned. Zverev needs to find a way to win his matches a little faster. Just plays. I mean, that guy just gets into ridiculous long rallies because he never wants to go for a winner, for God's sake.
It's insane.
But I think it's also. Sorry, go ahead.
He has the highest percentage of matches that go so long. He literally has the highest rate on the tour. And I've long said it's hard for me to think of all-time epic matches with Zverev, but whenever he plays a match, it will always go to the decider, for better or worse. It's crazy with the longest rallies ever. Just without
just what are you doing, mate? I mean, every point is a slog for him, and you just sort of feel like you're making your life brutal. And for someone with his wingspan, his height, I mean, I get he likes playing a defensive game style. I see that, but with the serve that he has, I mean, at least on serve, he should be looking to shorten the point. He just seems to want to get into a rally from the baseline. And I think he'll hate me for saying this, but he should take a little bit of a page from Medvedev's book this year, because Medvedev's been more willing to mix it up and get out of this, epic approach to playing tennis, which is, the long rallies and I'm going to wait you out and slog you out. And Medvedev proved in Australia that his ability to mix up those tactics, come into the net, shorten the point, put him in winning positions in matches that he, may not have been in if he had continued with this sort of grind them out level or grind them out tactic. And so, I think there's no real excuse for Zverev with some of these situations where he just seems unwilling to do anything other than what he already knows. And if we got into a debate on, where Zverev is going to go in his career, I would suggest that kind of without making tactical changes where he could finish the point a little bit quicker, we're not going to see him winning big titles.
Yeah, it's also mental as well, isn't it? Because he has chances in matches which he doesn't put away a lot of the times, and that just makes it longer, even if he gets the win at the end. And it's just if you're planning on winning a major eventually, he's still a pretty young guy, just turned 26. You don't want to play, Lucas Klein 10-7 the third round.
No, you got to be efficient with your match time and really think that through. And it's not the Zverev show today, but if we did an episode on who could win a Grand Slam for the first time over the next couple of years, I do think that's a barrier for him. I mean, so many aspects of his game are really strong, but that's a weakness for him. I also think it was interesting that Casper Ruud took out Tsitsipas. I don't know whether to say that this was a bit of a surprise, whether this was they're kind of on par in terms of performance at the moment. Maybe Ruud is a little bit stronger than Tsitsipas is currently. I mean, rankings wise would suggest so. But you would typically think that Tsitsipas loves to play on a hard court. These are the types of conditions that maybe would suit him better than Ruud, who we know is a stronger clay court player. So I think Ruud is showing some good form. Much better form than he did this time last year. So he's approached the season in a smarter way. And I think in some senses, the attention has really shifted to Sinner, Alcaraz, Djokovic, Medvedev, that Ruud is getting a little bit of an opportunity to fly somewhat under the radar. Pressure is taken off ever so slightly, and he's kind of able to go about his business as needed. And of course, I think he'll be disappointed with that final performance and not being able to win that second set tiebreak. But sometimes you come across somebody who's having a bit of an inspired run and wants to take the opportunity to get their first career title, and they're up against the wall a little bit more than you are. And just didn't quite have the finishing ability in the final. But I also just think that Thompson played a really good match, and sometimes it's just the way it goes.
Yeah, I agree. I think Casper is really impressive. Tsitsipas had loads of chances throughout the second set. I believe he had a few set points as well, maybe, but he was really good throughout that match. I mean, his forehand was fantastic. I do think that his level dropped a little bit in the final, but he played amazing throughout the tournament. I mean, he beat Marcos Giron in the first round, like 6-0, 6-1.
Yeah,
he played
really good.
He played a really, really good tournament. And I think he is a prospect that's going under the radar. For better or worse, he had a worse 2023. I think that's taken some of the pressure off his shoulders as well. And, he can be under the radar. And I think on clay courts, he'll be somebody to watch, especially. But I'm always high on Casper. So.
Yeah, I think in a way, we know the Indian Wells conditions are usually pretty slow. So I would put him as maybe a bit of a sleeper to be aware of at Indian Wells this year, and could, maybe could be behind a couple of upsets if the courts really are playing as slow as they did last year.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, I think Miami sped up. He did well in 2022. Last year it sped up, so that might be tough for him though. But we'll see. I think he is a bigger prospect on hard courts than people give him credit for, and on clay I'd be very eager to see how he does. And then going over to the Rio ATP 500, Baez beat Navone 6-2, 6-1 in the final qualifier in Navone. Two Argentines born in 2000, his fifth tour title, his first ATP 500. He unlocks a new career high ranking of number 21 in the world. And Baez took out Cerundolo on the way as well. Navone took out the defending champ Nori, and I'll tell you what this reminded me of. Actually, I was watching some of the replays of this, and it really didn't look like Navone didn't play a poor match. What it looked like to me was it reminded me of when Baez took on Jannik at the Australian Open, and it felt like Baez was playing a good match, but he just wasn't able to step up to the level that Jannik was playing at. That's what it felt like with Baez to Navone. And it was just, I don't know. Navone's backhand kept breaking down. A lot of errors from that wing, and Baez was able to just constantly get to that shot with such good width and placement that he's always able to do. Just getting one more extra shot back, he's so quick. And even if the top guys can usually put away that other last ball that Baez gets into the court, he is able to keep it low and make it tough enough that a guy who isn't expecting it or isn't able to handle it, it might be too much, or it might be too much every third point, which is still not a good thing. So Baez being so quick and getting another ball back is very good. And Baez gets the win, and he has now won 4 titles over the last 2 seasons. That is the only record shared by Sinner, Djokovic, Medvedev, and Alcaraz. So is Sebastian Baez flying under the radar? Is he part of the Big Five? Will he win the French Open, Eliza?
No, he won't win the French Open, in my opinion. But he certainly is. Again, if we're talking about sleepers, he is a big sleeper on the ATP Tour. He is, as you say, 4 titles in the last 2 seasons, super impressive, but yet he's still only ranked 21. So that would suggest that there are some kind of inconsistencies in his results. Like, he either seems to have a really good run or it's not good at all. Is he the new Diego Schwartzman? Can he hang around, and kind of get inside the top 20, knock on the door of the top 10? I think he has that defensive style of play, very quick, is going to force you to play another ball. He kind of has a game style, if we're looking at top players, that would remind me a little bit of Alex de Minaur. But I think he could learn from some of the adjustments that de Minaur has made over the last year that's allowed him to sort of teeter around that top 10 and even crack the top 10, in that he's sort of understanding he needs to find ways to finish the points outside of just kind of being able to run and grind, and go for some of the kind of winner opportunities that come to the net. And as I said, find ways to finish points against top players. And I would guess that that's probably kind of what Baez would need to add to his game in order to unlock kind of a next level for him. But I mean, I think what's a great takeaway or characteristic here is that when he's putting himself in the position to win tournaments, more often than not, he's winning them. And I think that is a winning mentality, a winning characteristic. It's not easy to win 250 titles. And so, and he's taken out good players on the road to the final. Cerundolo certainly kind of been a name that's been, up there over the last couple of years as well. And so I think he's showing demonstrating that he has a lot of mental toughness and this sort of winning mentality. And so I think a lot of good things to come from him, but I would still expect him to make some improvements before we really see him break into a level where he's challenging the top players consistently.
Yeah, I think he's a next gen guy that I think just isn't talked about enough. I think because he's so young and he is so winning, he is winning when he's getting to these positions, winning a lot of 250s, and here in Rio is a 500 as well, which was a good win. The draw was kind of strange for a 500, but part of that was Alcaraz
that's his biggest
also.
title.
Yes, and that was that Alcaraz was forced to retire earlier, which kind of took away him from the competition. But still, I mean, it was a great win, and you know, I do think that Baez is a very, very, very talented guy, and you see it from the way he can rally from back the court with consistent great depth, consistent great width. He's got a good backhand, he's got a good forehand. But what you say, and it goes back to my point of him playing against Jannik at the Australian Open, does he have that big weapon that can really test the top guy? And I just don't think he does. He's a very tough out for nearly anybody below him, but it's just being able to beat the guys above him that is another level. And right now, that's kind of where he stands, right in between. But he's doing great, and he's still a young guy, so just some more eyes on Baez, because he's kind of going a bit under the radar, I think. And also, and also in this tournament, Fonseca beat Artur Fils 6-0, 6-4. That was his first ATP win, which is crazy, over top 45 guy to bagel him, 17 years old, second ATP event, and then he follows it up with a win over Christian Garin. Second ATP event that Fonseca plays, huge explosive power, incredible lateral movement. I've seen people compare him to Jannik, the way he moves on the court. I kind of see it, I'm not going to lie. And just huge forehand that is just so... I don't know. It's crazy that in the same week we had Fonseca and Mensik both kind of breaking out, and also Alex Mickelson, 3 teenagers, kind of with big wins across 3 events. I don't know. It was exciting. It was interesting.
Yeah, a couple of things on that. I mean, I think, you know, on the women's game, we're used to seeing teenagers break through and kind of get these opportunities where they can compete on a big level. Alcaraz was sort of the exception to that on the ATP side. We usually aren't used to seeing teenagers have much success on the ATP level. And so it's exciting to see players get the opportunity to compete in these tournaments. And then, of course, to see them get a couple results as well. Mensik was able to compete in Qatar thanks to the Next Gen Accelerator program, the wild card. I don't know if Fonseca got that for Rio, how he
did not, I believe. I think it was a wild card.
Wild card. Okay, wild card. Awesome. Am I mistaken? Did Fonseca win the US Open junior title last year? Is that kind of where we know?
Yes, he did. Yes.
Okay.
US Open.
So I think he's certainly a name that is very intriguing and exciting to watch. I agree. I think his movement's probably the strongest aspect of his game, but he's also just a huge ball striker. You know, and I think players at this age often just come into these tournaments with like, I don't have anything to lose. Someone like a Christian Garin is a little bit more of a not a veteran, but, you know, he's been on the tour a little longer. I think sometimes players in their, you know, kind of mid-20s play with some more pressure in the sense of like, they're like, shit, I need to make this work for myself over the next couple of years, and I need to make money, and I need to, you know, pay my coaches and all this stuff. The pressure is on. And so it allows these young guys to come in and play free and play their best tennis. And most importantly, get some experience on the big stage and kind of, you know, have an opportunity to get introduced to a higher level of tennis. And I think the win against Fils was also huge because Fils is a talent that is also particularly young. He was ATP Next Gen 2 years ago. I think he has been a name that a lot of us are expecting to kind of start to shoot up in the rankings, start to get some bigger results. And so to get a win over him, particularly on clay court as well, and to bagel him, I mean, my goodness, he must have just totally taken Fils by surprise, which can also happen when you haven't kind of played against a guy like this before or really have much match footage and anticipation of how someone's going to play you. But, you know, all credit to Fonseca. I mean, Fils has got to do a better job of figuring problems out during the match, but I also just think he came up against someone who was playing super free and playing some of his best tennis.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, watching some of the match, it did feel like Feast didn't really have a backup plan. He was just going like straight for like, aggressive, and he was making a lot of errors, and he didn't really switch anything up. Fonseca looked so ready for the moment though, that it was just so different from anything that I've seen. I can only remember Alcaraz, who was also a wild card, I believe at Rio as well, and beating Ramos Vinolas in the style he did, and he was yelling "Vamos" and doing all the things that we know now. But it was like, it's so weird to see that from a young kid just coming up. But you want to see a guy who's that passionate and who probably grew up watching professional players and, is excited for the moment. And that's a great thing. And I think that's, what makes great champions. They have to be ready for the moment. And he was ready. And it was great to see him kind of step up in the way that he did. And he's a big talent. All these guys are great athletes. Mensik, Fonseca, and then you talk about a guy like Prismic as well at the Australian Open. Like, totally. I don't know which one this is of the next gens. Is this next gen or what it is? Yeah. But it's but we've seen a lot of them. But this one is exciting as well, and it's going to be fun to see Sinner, Alcaraz, and Rune taking on Fonseca, Mensik, and Prismic. I think that's what we're gearing up for.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, I think, as you say, some of these young guys are really good athletes and demonstrates kind of where the sport of tennis is going. I think nowadays, like the strings, the equipment that players have allow for a different level of game and stroke production that we even saw from, 20 years ago. And so players are having to condition themselves in ways that, players 20 years ago wouldn't have had to condition themselves that way. I'm not saying that they were not fit, but they are looking for maybe slightly different attributes and traits to separate themselves and kind of take the game to this new modern era. And I thought what was kind of fun about the ATP Next Gen finals was they kind of had this like fitness segment that they filmed where they had the players go up and like do these different fitness challenges against each other. That was like, how high can you jump? There was like agility tests, like speed tests, things like that. And I mean, these guys are putting out ridiculous numbers. You can check it out on YouTube. It's kind of fun to see. And I would love if they could do a comparison with some of the guys in the top 10 and kind of see where those numbers compare to, because I think when you look at a lot of these younger guys, in particular Prismic, it almost looks like their game is kind of built around a different type of athleticism. We talk a lot about Prismic, his game really built from the legs up. And his power and kind of speed coming from his lower half, and that being where he really causes problems as opposed to just the stroke production itself. So I'm really excited to kind of see how these young guys are going to shape the modern game of tennis, and it's certainly going to evolve how the sport is played.
Also, Mensik with kind of sliding on hard courts, he does that all the time with like both feet on hard courts, which is very kind of Novak-esque. I think Novak kind of rushed that kind of in. That probably even inspired maybe Iga on the women's side, who does that all the time now as well. And, Sinner, who's doing it as well. And they might be the two best players in the world at the moment. So it's like...
Yeah, I was going to say Fonseca because he's got that sponsorship with On. He's been compared to Iga Swiatek as well. And I do think it's worth giving Iga the shout out on the movement side, because her movement really is elite. I think it's unique in the women's game. Obviously, Coco is a fantastic athlete, but I think the footwork and the way that Iga Swiatek approaches movement on the tennis court is so clever, so efficient. I think that her and Sinner probably, obviously alongside Djokovic, some of the names that you would think of when it comes to the modern era of athleticism, movement, and kind of their approach to that, which is unique.
Yeah, and it's very Novak-esque because she seems like a hard worker who focuses on really perfecting the ins and outs of kind of, or not the ins and outs, but the she really has perfected her athleticism to be just so stellar. So I think that's true. And then we have one more 250 to talk about, which is the Qatar 250. Khachanov and Mensik in the final. And Khachanov with another good win. I think this is a guy going under the radar. And this is a guy who got to the top 10 for 1 week last year. But he got injured afterwards. But he's been really consistent week in, week out. This is his sixth title on hard courts. And very impressive. And Mensik had a great run. He beat Rublev, he beat Monfils, he beat Murray, he beat Fokina. On the way over there, Rublev in straight sets. Rublev didn't even play a bad match. Mensik just so impressive.
All over him, yeah.
And it was a great week from Mensik and Khachanov getting it done. Which was it's such high level serving in that final as well. Every single service stat from first serve points, second serve points won, and first serve percentage from both players was 68% or over from both guys. It was crazy. Like, you won't see better high level serving throughout the year in a final. And it was 14-12 in the tiebreaker, very small margins. And there was a key turning point in that final where Mensik hit a forehand down the line, and it was Khachanov's backhand on defense for a lob where he turned defense to offense. That was really impressive. And I feel like Khachanov's backhand really made a difference in a lot of the key points. Khachanov's playing a complete game, and I think he's going under the radar. What are your thoughts on Karin?
Yeah, I mean, I think I looked at Karin at the beginning of the year thinking if he's healthy, he's going to be inside the top 10 again, simply because his on-serve games are so strong. It's just so hard to break him, and he plays tie breaks really well. And he's made a couple of Grand Slam semifinals. He has certainly kind of been there, done that. As you say, he's now got 6 career titles, all kind of at a decent level. He's up to number 15 in the world. He's 9-3 in 2024. So I think it's certainly enough evidence to say that he's back and in the mix. And that 15-10 slot on the men's side right now, that is like changing every week. I mean, players are in and out of there. And I think if he can have a good sunshine double and, put a couple more wins together at these next 1,000 tournaments, he's certainly going to be a name that we're talking about moving into the top 10 in a couple of weeks or months' time. And I agree with you. His serve is just so dangerous. It's just so efficient. I think it's really hard to break him. And, if he's playing efficient tie breaks, it just sort of can sap the energy of your opponent. If you're just like, damn, I just can't get through this guy in these types of situations, and particularly on hard court. So he had a slightly kind of easier route to the final than Mensik did. I think he had a little bit more gas in the tank, also just a little more experience than Mensik, who, probably, just a new experience for him, first ATP final, and you would expect the experience of Khachanov to allow him to be victorious, and that's what happened. But kudos to Mensik. I mean, he had a strong run at the Australian Open. He's having another couple of good wins post this tournament already. And of course, I think the most impressive win here was against Rublev, who hasn't been too shabby himself this year, and just blew him off the court. So, I mean,
yeah, he had never been a top 50 opponent before this week, but Rublev was 10-0 against players outside the top 20. So yeah, shout out to Mensik, and 9-3 in your first 12 matches on tour is something that I've barely ever heard of. That's crazy.
Yeah. Crazy.
So wild.
Yeah.
All right. And I think now we can go on to the power rankings. Go.
Okay. I will leave you be.
Okay.
All right, guys, I'm headed to prepare for some stuff at Indian Wells. So hopefully, if you're going to be at Indian Wells, I'll see you there. Send me a message on Instagram or Twitter. I will leave you in the trusty hands of Anthony to take you through my power rankings, what's coming up this coming week, and some culture pieces as well. So I'll see you guys soon.
All right, see you.
Bye.
Cool. And now on to the power ranking segment of the podcast. So my ATP side of it, I've got Sinner, and then I've got Medvedev, Djokovic, Zverev, De Minaur, then Hurkacz. Nobody moved there. I have Khachanov breaking in because he did really impress me this week. I think a big thing for Khachanov moving forward is really, there's a few things, and it's really all comes down to the fact that he will consistently beat guys lower ranked than him, kind of like Sebastian Baez, although on a higher level than Baez, a little bit at the moment for sure. It's hard for him to beat top 10 guys, and part of it is mental. Like when he was up 5-2 on Dimitrov in the third set tiebreaker a couple weeks back. It's hard for him to beat guys of that level. Part of it is mental. The other part is kind of variety, although I saw a lot of it this week and I thought it looked better. By variety, I mean kind of the slices, the net game, transition game is a big one as well. But I think that, his serve is so good. He's got a great forehand. He's got a great backhand. He's got great instincts. He has I think actually deceptively good speed on the court. And he's got great power. I just think that it's just beating the top guys and getting that one big weapon to be able to compete with those guys and really cross the line against those guys. The variety, the mental, and having just upping his weapons to get over the line if he can do that. But anyway, he's having great weeks, and shout out to Khachanov. I think he's going under the radar, and I think he's still a contender for a Masters. He won one in Paris in 2018. I think that he's playing some of the best tennis of his career, especially last year where he reached 2 consecutive slam semis, and then he was completely outplaying Djokovic at Roland Garros before Djokovic came back in the second set tiebreaker. But I think that, after that, he had to withdraw from Wimbledon, and things kind of went off the radar a little bit for him. He won a title in Zhuhai towards the end of the season, though. But still, he's having a good time of it. Rublev, and then I've got Humbert climbing in. Humbert was in at number 9. But he's just playing great. He's hitting huge off both wings. Monfils beat Humbert last week, and Humbert didn't play the best match, but also Monfils was so zoned in. Played such a smart match. He had 22 winners to 6 errors. He was doing so well on serve, on first serve. Not so well on second serve, actually, but didn't have to hit the second serve very much. And then, I've got Mensik climbing in as well because he just had such a great week. And I feel like if we're doing power rankings, this is players we're excited about. Yeah, Jakub Mensik is in there. He's in there, and he's playing amazing. He also beat Coric 9-7 third set tiebreaker this week. Already following it up. It's so impressive to me more than anything, the mental game that he's shown, saving break points, stepping up, peaking at the right moments, and that is something that you don't always see. On the women, on Eliza's men's side, she's got Sinner, Medvedev, Djokovic, and then she's got Alcaraz. I think Eliza is, thinking Alcaraz got injured this week. She's hoping for a good result at the Sunshine Double, where Alcaraz has had success before. Then Eliza has Zverev, and then Khachanov is in there as well. De Minaur did not make Eliza's list, which I would have asked her if she was here for where Demon is at. But anyway, De Minaur did lose to Mickelson, so he did have a worse week of it. But I think he maybe was tired from Rotterdam, which is why I didn't move him down. I kept him at 5 despite the poor kind of result this week. He played a long week. He beat Dimitrov last week. I believe he beat Tsitsipas as well, maybe. He beat a couple of good players in Rotterdam, and he played one of the best matches I've seen him play against Jannik, despite it being straight sets. So anyway, I think he was just tired. It was only a couple days after that final he played against Mickelson, who was playing out of his mind, coming to net a lot, just played amazing. Mickelson really had a great week, so shout out to Mickelson. Rublev, then Hurkacz, and then Eliza has Ruud climbing in, was so close to putting Ruud in here. Maybe I would have put in Humbert out because he lost to Monfils and put Ruud in, but I just like Humbert a lot right now, so he makes it. Ruud, if he has one more good result, he might skyrocket into my power rankings, and so maybe even like 5, 6, 7 spot territory. Mensik also at 10, similar reasons to me. I think Swiatek climbed ahead of Sabalenka. Sabalenka had a fairly poor loss to Vekic, and Swiatek reached the semis. She has a good result off of Doha, so makes sense. Rybakina is in there as well. Then Goff, then Kalinskaya, Paolini. Both me and Eliza put Kalinskaya ahead of Paolini. Listen, Kalinskaya she's playing some of the best tennis of her life at such quick improvement with such a vast skill set, not just offensively, but drop shot, slicing, net game. But she can hit big as well, I just think she had a great result in Australian Open. She's had a great result in a few tournaments recently this year. And Paolini, this has been a great run from her this week. Will be probably the best run of her career. But I just think that Kalinskaya has been able to do it more consistently. But let's see if Paolini can, back it up. But Paolini is at a career high of number 14 in the world. Kalinskaya is at a career high of number 24 in the world. Then Eliza has Pliskova, Ostapenko, Zheng, and Svitolina. Similar to me, I've got Ostapenko, Goff, Zheng, Pliskova, Azarenka. I like the Svitolina mention. I hope that she can have a few good results now that she's back healthy. But yeah, those are some of the power rankings at the moment. I think that Kalinskaya is very exciting, and we'll see if it's like a Raducanu Fernandez type of situation where it might be good for it might make Kalinskaya hungrier that she didn't even end up winning the title now that she went all the way. It was kind of a reverse actually of Raducanu Fernandez because Paolini was like Fernandez in this situation, making so many great comebacks, and Kalinskaya is like the Raducanu of this situation as a qualifier. But also you can make an argument that Paolini is kind of like the Fernandez because Kalinskaya is like the Fernandez because she's beaten a lot of top players. So anyway, it's a very comparable situation. And I tend to think, you never know, it's all what ifs at this point. But maybe winning the title wasn't the best thing for Emma at the end of the day, put a lot of pressure and eyes on her automatically, and maybe would have favored Layla more. We never know. Layla would have gotten all that pressure as well. But I think that we'll see if maybe it's a Layla Emma situation where this will only make Kalinskaya hungrier, the fact that she didn't go all the way. We'll see what happens, but it'll be exciting to see what all pans down. Then now I want to talk about the upcoming tournaments and the tournaments going on currently. So we've got an Acapulco tournament featuring Zverev, de Minaur, Rune, Tsitsipas, Ruud, Fritz, Paul Tiafoe. Acapulco is stacked up. I'll tell you what, though, a few seeds have already fallen. Named specifically, Fritz and Paul have already lost. I'll take a look right now at the Acapulco draw. But we've had a few seeds already going out. Zverev also, by the way, lost to Altmaier today. So that is a big result. Huge result. Top seed. Sasha Zverev is out. And I don't know. That would make Zverev climb down my power rankings. But Altmaier is always dangerous. Yannick knows something about that. Yannick Sinner. So anyway, that was a big result. And but it's still stacked. The tournament is absolutely stacked. There's going to be a lot of great matches coming up. We could get de Minaur versus Tsitsipas in the quarterfinals. That is a matchup that de Minaur hates, but Demon is playing some of the best tennis of his life. Tsitsipas is trying to find his form, so that could be a great, great quarterfinal. And by the way, that was a great quarterfinal in Los Cabos last year in the final of Los Cabos. So yeah, we'll see what all happens. That's Acapulco. Talking about Dubai, we have Medvedev playing. We have, who else do we have playing? We've got Medvedev, Rublev, Khachanov, Humbert, Bublik, Manarino, and Fokina. And, it'll be an exciting tournament. Korda versus Rublev. Korda, by the way, beating Botic van de Zandschulp 6-1, 6-0. That wasn't Botic's first match. Botic had a good win in his first round. Botic beat Manarino, the 6th seed, 7-6, 7-5. Korda wins 6-1, 6-0. Korda beats Kotov in the first round, 6-0, 6-2. Jesus. Korda's lost 3 games. He's got Rublev next. Watch out, Rublev. I'm calling upset. Look at those score lines. Jesus. Anyway, Humbert Medvedev could be a semi. And Rublev Korda, the winner of those two, could play the winner of Bublik Lehechka. Could be Medvedev Rublev. Could be Medvedev Korda. And yeah, Humbert Medvedev would be fantastic. That was a great upset at the ATP Cup a couple years ago where I thought Humbert was finally going to start rising up. Then he had a much worse 2022. Good to see Humbert is finally where he belongs at 25 years of age. Finally, right in the main conversation of the tour. So those are some of the tournaments coming up that I think are exciting. We'll see how Medvedev does. This is Medvedev's first tournament following Australia. And, I think that was good that he took some rest following Australia, mentally, physically, just in about every single way. I think he's still finding his form, but listen, he had like an all-time run in Australia. Longest run a player has ever recorded to have at a Grand Slam tournament, maybe ever has had, period. And, he had so many tight wins, exciting wins, a 2-set-to-love comeback, went 2 sets up on Sinner, playing some of the most exciting tennis we've seen in a while. His legs just ran out of gas, but shout out to Medi. I don't like it when people exclude Medvedev out of the conversation. I know it's tempting to just go Sinner, Alcaraz, and Djokovic. I think that you can also market it in that way. That's fine, but I just hope that we keep Medvedev included because he really has proven himself in that top tier, in my opinion. And, Andy Roddick said it best, but he's don't look at the fact that he's lost just 2 finals from 2 sets to love up. He had to lose them to Sinner and Rafa, playing unbelievable, and he is an unbelievable top-tier player who's proven himself. Over 80% win rate on hard court, 6 major finals. I mean, 6 major finals is very rare. Very rare. And, we'll see if he can win the same tournament twice in Dubai. He said whichever tournament he wins twice will be his favorite hardcore tournament. Now on to the culture segment of the podcast. Gauff versus Pliskova earlier in the week. Horrible call from an umpire in that match. And I'm not going to even speak that much about the umpire. I want to talk about the lack of technology that's being used. Because Gauff's serve was an ace, and the umpire, Pliskova hit the ball, and literally like 1 second, like a full second, if not more than that later, the umpire calls out. The ball's in, and the umpire says replay the point, and then there's a whole thing. The umpire, I think, could have handled the situation way better. Gauff was asking for the supervisor. She really wasn't allowed to get one, which is crazy. But the big thing I think that would have stopped the situation from even happening is if we had Hawkeye Live on the court, where you don't even have to have that judgment call of whether the out call happened first or not, because it doesn't matter, because the technology already does it for you. You won't have, that challenge or this or that out call, the late out call. So I just wish Hawkeye Live was implemented to make things objective, to not have to make the umpire step in. And also, we're watching a video that makes it quite clear that the call happened afterwards. But it makes it quite clear that the call happened afterwards. So if we had that in place, where it was an objective rule that you have to watch the video and make the judgment call, and you never know, maybe the call wouldn't be overturned anyway, which would be crazy, especially in this situation. But you can watch the video like so many are watching on social media just for 5 seconds, and that would be the challenge. And there's so many ways to like go in depth, especially on visual, but on audio as well. And it just seems like we're not using the technology that's like at hand for us to use, that everybody is using, that we're using anyway, especially for like Hawkeye Live, where it's like we have so much technology at hand, and video technology also for double bounces, for foot faults. I've already seen different, technology of like different angles of a person doing a foot fault. And it just like, I don't know why we're not using video replays for these kinds of stuff. You can say it's slowing down the game, or it makes it look a little bit weird once it's so fine margins, especially when it's, physical movement as opposed to whether a ball hits a line or not. But to me, it just makes sense. And I think that we're already, quickening the game, like we're quickening the game in such a strong way. This makes sense, even if it slows it down just a tad. I mean, you can have maybe one challenge per set, one footfall challenge per set, one, let challenge per set, one double bounce challenge per set, one late call challenge per set, or one or two. That makes sense to me. I think it makes sense. You have that in other sports, and I don't see why we're so slacking behind with tennis. At the least, we need Hawkeye Live. I think it's going to be implemented in 2025 across all events, at least all events off of clay. And, I hope it comes soon, because I think that this kind of stuff could be avoided. And, that's kind of the culture segment for the podcast. Appreciate everybody joining in. Don't forget to like the podcast if you enjoyed it. Don't forget to subscribe as well to Quality Shot Tennis if you enjoyed it as well. I've been Anthony Hirsch. Appreciate it, Eliza. Like always, joining in later. We'll be here next week. I'll see you guys then. See you guys at the next podcast.